Jake always knew his true passion was food. Ever since he was a kid, he'd spend hours in the kitchen with his grandma, learning old recipes and coming up with new flavor combinations. Growing up, he dreamed of becoming a renowned chef, and in New York, that ambition burned even brighter. The city was a place where dreams either came true or got crushed, and Jake was determined to make sure his was the former. The bustling food festival was his chance to show he had what it takes, and his heart raced with excitement. Amidst the crowded stalls, where the aromas blended in the warm summer air, he met Madison. It was one of those encounters that felt like it was written in the stars. Madison stood by a booth of artisanal cheeses, her eyes shining with enthusiasm as she talked about the rich, complex flavors. Jake, captured by the same passion, joined the conversation, and soon they were discussing the culinary arts with an intensity that pushed all other thoughts aside. "Have you ever tried pairing blue cheese with lavender honey?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Jake grinned, surprised to find someone who shared his love for unexpected combinations. "Not yet, but I'm always up for new experiences," he replied, feeling a spark of connection. They wandered through the festival together, sampling dishes and sharing stories. Madison told Jake about her job in marketing, how she loved the creativity of it, but often felt trapped by the corporate world. Jake shared his own story, how he worked his way up from washing dishes in a local diner to cooking in one of the city's up-and-coming restaurants. "It's a tough gig," he admitted, "but when you're passionate about something, you just keep pushing." His words resonated with Madison, who nodded in understanding. The day flew by as they laughed and talked, discovering how much they had in common. It was as if they had known each other forever. As the sun began to set over the skyline, casting golden hues across the festival, Jake knew this was more than just a chance meeting. It was the beginning of something neither of them could have anticipated. As they said goodbye, Madison hesitated for a moment before speaking. "You know, I've never met anyone who gets as excited about food as I do," she said, a hint of shyness in her voice. Jake chuckled, feeling the same. "Yeah, it's pretty rare to find someone who understands the thrill of flavors." They exchanged numbers, a promise to meet again lingering in the air. In the following weeks, Jake and Madison found themselves inseparable. They explored every corner of the city, from hidden cafes to bustling street markets, sharing meals and dreams. Their relationship grew, not just through their mutual love of food, but through their shared ambition. Madison supported Jake's dream of opening his own restaurant, offering ideas and encouragement. She had a knack for business, and together, they envisioned a future that seemed almost within reach. They spent countless evenings brainstorming, planning, and dreaming about what their restaurant would be like. "I can see it now," Jake said one night, sketching ideas on a napkin at their favorite cafe. "A place where people can come for an experience, not just a meal. Something unforgettable, you know?" Madison nodded, adding her own thoughts. "We'll need a unique menu, something that tells a story with each dish." It was the perfect blend of their talents, Jake's culinary skills and Madison's marketing savvy. Their relationship blossomed against the backdrop of the city, a tale unfolding with each day that passed. Jake was head over heels, inspired not only by Madison's support but by her passion for life. They were a team, a perfect match, and as the days turned into months, they began to see their dream take shape, their restaurant slowly becoming a reality. But every great story has its challenges, and their budding romance was no exception. As Jake and Madison grew closer, they also faced the pressures and uncertainties that came with chasing their dreams. The restaurant business was competitive, and there were no guarantees of success. Yet, they were determined to make it work, supporting each other through the ups and downs. They were two souls bound by passion, ready to conquer the culinary world together. As the city lights twinkled like stars in the night, they often found themselves dreaming of the future. "I think we can do this," Jake said one night, his voice filled with determination. "We've got something special here, and it's going to be an incredible journey." Madison squeezed his hand, feeling the same sense of hope. "Absolutely," she agreed, knowing that no matter what came their way, they had each other. And so, their story continued to unfold, a tale of love, ambition, and the pursuit of dreams. But little did they know, this was only the beginning. a prelude to the challenges and heartaches that lay ahead. For now, they savored the moments, knowing that each day brought them closer to their shared destiny. As the weeks turned into months, Jake and Madison's relationship grew deeper. They were two people not just in love, but driven by a shared vision. Jake's dream of opening his own restaurant seemed more tangible with Madison by his side. She was his confidant, his biggest supporter, and together, they began to lay down the blueprint of their future. They spent evenings poring over cookbooks and business plans, sipping on wine as they discussed what their dream restaurant would look like. Jake was constantly experimenting with new recipes, testing them on Madison, whose marketing skills made her an invaluable partner. "You've got to try this," Jake said one night, setting a plate of roasted duck with a pomegranate glaze in front of her. Madison took a bite and closed her eyes, savoring the explosion of flavors. "Wow, Jake, that's incredible. It's bold but balanced, just like what we're aiming for." The restaurant they envisioned was more than just a place to eat. It was an experience. They wanted it to reflect their personalities and passion. "We'll need a unique name," Madison mused one night as they strolled through Central Park. "Something that captures the essence of what we're creating." Jake nodded, deep in thought. "How about Essence? It's simple, but it conveys everything we want. Essence of flavor, essence of passion." Madison smiled. "I love it. Essence it is. A place where every dish tells a story." They could see it so clearly, customers walking into a warm, inviting space, greeted by the aroma of herbs and spices, the soft hum of conversation blending with the clinking of glasses. It was their dream taking shape in their minds, and every day they moved closer to making it a reality. Their dynamic was a perfect balance of creativity and practicality. Jake was the artist, crafting flavors and dishes that pushed boundaries, while Madison brought structure and strategy to their plans. She researched potential locations, market trends, and how to create a brand that would stand out in a city full of culinary giants. "We have to be different," she often reminded Jake. "It's not just about good food. It's about creating an experience people will talk about." And that's exactly what they intended to do. They began to set aside weekends to visit potential sites, taking notes and imagining how they could transform empty spaces into the bustling heart of Essence. "This one has potential," Madison said one Saturday afternoon, standing in an empty brick-lined room with large windows that overlooked a busy street. Jake could see it too. Tables filled with diners, chefs bustling in the open kitchen, the air filled with the scent of their creations. "It's perfect," he said, feeling the excitement build inside him. But as they moved forward with their plans, the challenges of starting a business began to surface. Securing funding was no easy task, and the stress of balancing their personal lives with professional ambitions was mounting. Yet, despite the obstacles, they remained committed to their dream. "We knew it wouldn't be easy," Madison said during a particularly challenging week, "but nothing worth having ever is." Jake nodded, drawing strength from her determination. Their shared dream brought them closer, but it also tested their resolve. They learned to navigate disagreements, finding compromise in areas where their visions didn't align perfectly. Madison's keen eye for detail clashed at times with Jake's free-spirited creativity, but they always found a way to bring out the best in each other. "You keep me grounded," Jake admitted one evening as they sat together in their small apartment, papers and sketches spread out before them. Madison smiled. "And you remind me to dream big." Through the ups and downs, their love was the constant that kept them moving forward. They supported each other, not just as partners in business, but as partners in life. It was a bond forged through shared aspirations and late-night talks, laughter and tears, and an unwavering belief in each other's potential. However, even as they celebrated small victories, an undercurrent of tension was building, one that neither of them fully acknowledged. They were pouring everything they had into their dream, but the pressure of making it a reality was immense. Jake often found himself lost in thought, worried about what lay ahead. The path they had chosen was not easy, and the stakes were incredibly high, but they were determined to see it through, driven by the hope that Essence would become everything they dreamed it could be. As they moved closer to launching their restaurant, the excitement and stress mingled, creating a potent mix of anticipation. Every step brought them nearer to their goal, but it also reminded them of the challenges they still faced. Yet, Through it all, their commitment to each other and their shared dream remained unshakable. And so, their journey continued, a journey of love, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of a shared dream. But as the pressures mounted, the foundation they had built began to show cracks, hinting at the struggles that would soon test the strength of their partnership. As Jake and Madison moved forward with their plans for Essence, life seemed almost perfect. Their bond was strong, their dreams within reach, and the future felt promising. However, as is often the case in life, the arrival of unexpected elements can test even the strongest foundations. Enter Chris, a figure from Madison's past who would unwittingly become a catalyst for the trials ahead. Chris was an old college friend of Madison's, someone she had known long before she met Jake. He was charming, outgoing, and had a knack for making people feel comfortable. He was the kind of person who could walk into a room and instantly draw attention. When Chris moved to New York for a new job, it was only natural for him to reconnect with Madison. Initially, Jake didn't think much of it. He was confident in his relationship with Madison, and Chris seemed like a genuinely nice guy. But as time went on, Chris's presence started to create ripples in their lives. Madison was thrilled to have Chris back in her life. They quickly fell back into an easy friendship, sharing inside jokes and stories from their college days. Chris was interested in their restaurant plans and often joined Jake and Madison for dinner, offering his perspective and ideas. "This is going to be huge, you know," Chris said one evening as they sat around their dining table, a bottle of wine half empty. "A place like Essence is exactly what the city needs." Madison beamed at the praise, and Jake couldn't deny that it felt good to have someone so enthusiastic about their venture. Yet, beneath his friendly exterior, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't anything Chris said or did specifically, but more a sense of unease that crept in when he was around. Jake dismissed it as paranoia. After all, Madison and Chris were just friends. But as the weeks passed, those feelings of unease became harder to ignore. Small things began to change. Madison started spending more time with Chris, going out for drinks after work or meeting up for brunch on weekends. She assured Jake that it was just to catch up, but the time they spent together started to add up. Jake found himself at the restaurant alone more often, working late into the night while Madison was out with Chris. He tried to focus on their plans, but doubts lingered in the back of his mind. Tensions began to bubble beneath the surface, and the once easygoing atmosphere between Jake and Madison grew strained. It wasn't that they were fighting, at least, not at first, but the warmth and closeness they shared seemed to be slowly eroding. Little misunderstandings turned into arguments, and the stress of building Essence only added fuel to the fire. One evening, as they were reviewing the restaurant's budget, a small disagreement spiraled into something much bigger. "You've been so distracted lately, Jake," Madison said, frustration creeping into her voice. "We need to be on the same page if this is going to work." Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm doing my best, Madison. It's just everything's happening so fast, and with Chris around all the time, I feel like we're losing focus." Madison frowned, her expression turning defensive. "Chris is just a friend. He believes in us, Jake. Sometimes I feel like you're the one pulling away." The accusation stung, and Jake felt his temper flare. "I'm not pulling away," he retorted, "but it feels like you're more interested in what Chris thinks than in what we're building here." The room fell into silence, tension hanging thick in the air. It was the first real argument they'd had, and neither knew how to bridge the gap that had suddenly appeared between them. Madison eventually left for a walk, leaving Jake alone to brood over their fight. He stared at the restaurant plans laid out before him, a mix of frustration and helplessness swirling inside. In the days that followed, things didn't improve. The arguments became more frequent, each one leaving them more exhausted than the last. They were both passionate about Essence, but that passion sometimes translated into stubbornness and miscommunication. Jake felt like he was constantly walking on eggshells, unsure of what might trigger the next argument. Chris's presence was a constant reminder of the distance growing between Jake and Madison. Although Madison insisted that her friendship with Chris was innocent, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that Chris was somehow coming between them. He felt guilty for being suspicious, but couldn't deny the impact it was having on their relationship. It was as if Chris was a wedge slowly driving them apart. One evening, After another long day at the restaurant, Jake found himself staring at the empty chair across from him, the silence of the apartment almost deafening. Madison was out with Chris again, and despite her reassurances, Jake couldn't help but feel the weight of her absence. He picked up his phone, hesitating before finally sending a text to Madison. "I miss you. Can we talk when you get home?" Her response was delayed, but when it came, it was simple. "Of course. I'll be back soon." Jake spent the next hour pacing the apartment, his mind racing with thoughts of what he wanted to say. He needed to find a way to express his concerns without turning it into another fight. He knew they needed to have an honest conversation about their relationship and the impact Chris was having on it. When Madison finally returned, Jake could see the weariness in her eyes. They sat down together, the room filled with a heavy silence before Jake finally spoke. "Madison, I know we've been going through a rough patch, and I think part of it is because of Chris. I trust you, but his presence is changing things between us, and I don't know how to fix it." Madison looked at Jake, her expression softening. "I felt it too, Jake. I never meant for Chris to come between us. He's just been a part of my life for so long, and I didn't realize how it might affect us. But I'm here with you, and I want to make this work." Her words were sincere, and Jake felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't an instant fix, but acknowledging the problem was a start. They talked late into the night, hashing out their feelings and fears. It was a conversation that had been long overdue, and by the end, both felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. They agreed to set boundaries with Chris and focus on rebuilding the trust and connection that had been eroded over the past few weeks. It was a small step, but it was the beginning of healing the cracks in their relationship. However, the path ahead was far from easy. The stress of launching Essence still loomed, and Chris's presence, while diminished, wasn't gone entirely. Jake and Madison knew they had a lot of work to do, both personally and professionally. But for the first time in a long while, they felt like they were on the same page, united in their love and determination to make their dream a reality. As they faced the challenges ahead, Jake held on to the hope that they could weather this storm together. But little did they know, the true test of their relationship was yet to come, and the foundation they were working so hard to rebuild would soon face its greatest challenge. Despite their efforts to mend the cracks in their relationship, the strain between Jake and Madison only grew. The pressures of opening Essence were relentless, and Chris's presence, although lessened, was still a looming shadow. They were partners in business and in love, but the weight of their dreams seemed to be pulling them in different directions. Jake poured his heart and soul into the restaurant, often working late into the night perfecting recipes and managing the endless details of opening a new business. He was determined to make Essence a success, but his relentless focus on work often left little time for Madison. Although she shared his passion for the project, she began to feel sidelined, her ideas and contributions overshadowed by Jake's single-minded pursuit of perfection. Madison, in turn, found herself seeking solace in her friendship with Chris. He was always there to listen, offering a sympathetic ear and lighthearted distraction from the stress of her everyday life. She knew it wasn't fair to Jake, but it was easier to lean on Chris than to confront the growing distance between herself and the man she loved. As the opening date of Essence approached, the tension between Jake and Madison reached a breaking point. Small disagreements exploded into full-blown arguments, and their once harmonious partnership became a battleground of clashing ideas and hurt feelings. It was as if the dream they had built together was slipping through their fingers, and neither knew how to stop it. One evening, after a particularly heated argument about the restaurant's menu, Madison found herself alone in the empty dining room of Essence. The space was dark, save for the streetlights casting a dim glow through the windows. She sat at one of the tables, her mind swirling with doubts and frustrations. She felt trapped between the life she had imagined with Jake and the reality of their crumbling relationship. Jake found her there, sitting in silence, her expression distant. He approached cautiously, the weight of their earlier argument still hanging heavily between them. "Madison, we need to talk," he said softly, taking a seat across from her. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting a sadness that mirrored his own. "Jake, I don't know if I can do this anymore," Madison confessed, her voice trembling with emotion. "We've lost ourselves in this dream, and it's tearing us apart. I love you, but I don't know how to fix what's broken between us. Jake's heart sank at her words, the realization hitting him like a punch to the gut. He had been so focused on the restaurant that he had neglected the most important person in his life. Madison, I never wanted to lose you, he replied, his voice raw with regret. I thought if I could make Essence a success, it would make everything better. But I see now that I was wrong. Madison nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I wanted this dream too, Jake, but not at the cost of us. I miss the way we used to be, the laughter, the late-night talks, the feeling that we were a team. Now it feels like we're just two people sharing a space, not a life. Their conversation was punctuated by a heavy silence, both of them grappling with the reality of their situation. The restaurant that had once symbolized their shared vision now felt like a barrier between them, a constant reminder of their struggles. In that moment, Jake realized that he needed to let go of his pride and admit his mistakes. I'm sorry, Madison, he said, reaching for her hand. I've been so wrapped up in my own ambitions that I forgot what really matters. I don't want to lose you. Madison squeezed his hand, a glimmer of hope flickering in her eyes. I don't want to lose you either, Jake, but we need to figure out how to move forward together, or we risk losing everything we've built. They sat in the dimly lit restaurant, hands clasped together, searching for a way to rebuild the connection that had once seemed unbreakable. It was a pivotal moment, one that would determine the course of their relationship and the future of Essence. As they talked late into the night, they began to peel back the layers of their issues, confronting the fears and insecurities that had driven them apart. They promised to communicate more openly, to make time for each other outside of work, and to support each other's dreams in equal measure. For a brief moment, it felt like they were making progress, like the path to healing was within reach. But the road to reconciliation was fraught with challenges, and as much as they wanted to believe in a happy ending, reality had other plans. A few weeks later, as Essence prepared to open its doors to the public, the pressure became too much for Madison. Despite their best efforts to mend their relationship, the stress of the restaurant and the unresolved tensions between them had taken their toll. Madison felt suffocated by the weight of their shared dreams, unable to reconcile her own needs with the demands of their partnership. One evening, after another long day at the restaurant, Madison made a decision that would change everything. She asked Jake to meet her at the apartment they shared, needing to speak to him away from the chaos of Essence. When Jake arrived, he found Madison standing by the window, looking out at the city that had once been the backdrop of their happiest moments. Jake, I've been thinking a lot about us, Madison began, turning to face him. I love you, and I always will, but I need to take a step back. I need to find out who I am outside of this restaurant, outside of us. Jake's heart clenched at her words, the reality of her decision hitting him hard. Madison, please, we can work through this. I know it's been tough, but we can find a way to make it work. Madison shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. I need to do this for myself, Jake. I've lost sight of who I am, and I can't keep pretending that everything's okay. I need space to figure things out. Her decision was like a knife to Jake's heart, the pain of losing her cutting deep. But he knew that he couldn't hold her back, that he had to respect her need for independence. I understand, he said, his voice breaking. I don't want to lose you, but I'll give you the space you need. Just know that I'll be here if you ever want to come back. They embraced, both of them holding on tightly, reluctant to let go of what they had shared. It was a bittersweet moment, a mix of love and heartbreak, as they faced the reality of their separation. As Madison packed her things and left the apartment they had once called home, Jake felt a profound sense of loss. The woman he loved was walking out of his life, and he was left to pick up the pieces of their shattered dreams. In the days that followed, Jake threw himself into his work at Essence, using the restaurant as a way to channel his grief. Each dish he created was infused with the emotions he couldn't express, a reflection of the journey he had been on with Madison. The restaurant opened to rave reviews, but the success felt hollow without Madison by his side. Madison, too, embarked on her own journey of self-discovery. She took time to reflect on her own dreams and desires, exploring new interests and reconnecting with friends. She knew that she needed to find her own path, one that didn't revolve around the restaurant or her relationship with Jake. Their separation was painful, but it was also necessary. It allowed them to grow as individuals, to rediscover who they were outside of their partnership. They both carried the hope that one day, their paths might cross again, but for now, they needed to follow their own journeys. And so, the chapter of their shared dream came to a close, leaving behind the promise of new beginnings and the possibility of healing. As Jake continued to build Essence and Madison explored her own passions, they each held onto the memory of what they had once shared, knowing that the story of their love was far from over. With Madison gone, Jake felt like a ship adrift in a storm. Essence was a success, but it was a hollow victory without Madison by his side. The restaurant buzzed with energy and the clinking of glasses, but inside, Jake felt an aching void. His heart was broken, but he was determined not to let that pain go to waste. He decided to channel his heartache into his cooking, using the kitchen as a canvas to express his emotions. Jake spent long hours in the kitchen, perfecting each dish and infusing it with the complex emotions that swirled within him. The kitchen became his sanctuary, a place where he could be alone with his thoughts and memories. Every chop of the knife, every sizzle in the pan, was a cathartic release. If I can't express myself with words, he often thought, I'll do it through my food. He crafted a new menu for Essence, one that told the story of his journey with Madison. Each dish was a chapter in their relationship, capturing the joy, passion, heartbreak, and longing that had defined their time together. It was a risky move, but Jake wanted his diners to experience not just the flavors, but the emotions behind them. The menu was his love letter to Madison, a testament to what they had shared. One of the signature dishes, a seared scallop with a delicate citrus sauce, was inspired by the day they met at the food festival. It was light, refreshing, and unexpected, much like their first encounter. Another dish, a rich beef bourguignon, symbolized the warmth and comfort of their early days together, when everything seemed perfect and the world was full of possibilities. But not all dishes were sweet remembrances. Some carried the weight of their struggles, like the smoked duck breast with a bitter cherry reduction, representing the tension and misunderstandings that had eventually driven them apart. Jake poured every ounce of his emotion into his cooking, determined to create something beautiful from his pain. As word of Essence's new menu spread, people flocked to the restaurant, eager to experience the innovative flavors and the story behind them. Diners were moved not just by the food, but by the personal narrative woven into each course. It's like tasting someone's soul, one reviewer wrote, capturing the essence of what Jake was trying to achieve. In the midst of the restaurant's growing popularity, Jake remained haunted by his memories of Madison. He missed her laughter, her insights, and the way she could always tell when something was on his mind. He longed for the days when they had worked side by side, dreaming of the future. But he also knew that he had to respect her decision to leave and find herself. Despite his heartache, Jake found solace in the creative process. He discovered a newfound depth in his cooking, a maturity that came from truly understanding the power of food to evoke emotion. Each dish was a step toward healing, a way to process his grief and move forward. The kitchen, once a place of routine and repetition, had become a space for exploration and introspection. As the weeks turned into months, Jake began to notice subtle changes in himself. The pain of Madison's absence was still there, but it no longer consumed him. He was learning to live with it, to embrace it as part of his journey. His cooking reflected this transformation, becoming more nuanced and complex. He started experimenting with new techniques, pushing the boundaries of what he thought was possible. Jake's dedication to his craft did not go unnoticed. Essence garnered critical acclaim, earning accolades and drawing attention from food critics and fellow chefs alike. Jake was invited to speak at culinary events, where he shared his philosophy on the emotional power of food. He spoke candidly about his journey, the challenges he faced, and the lessons he had learned along the way. Through these experiences, Jake found a sense of purpose beyond his own struggles. He realized that his story, while deeply personal, resonated with others who had faced similar challenges. He began to see his role as not just a chef, but as a storyteller, using food to connect with people on a deeper level. One evening, as Jake was closing up the restaurant, he found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this point. The restaurant was quiet, the tables cleared and the kitchen spotless. The success of Essence was undeniable, but Jake knew that the true victory lay in the growth he had experienced as a person and a chef. As he locked up and stepped into the cool night air, Jake felt a renewed sense of hope. He had transformed his pain into something beautiful, and in doing so, had discovered a strength he hadn't known he possessed. The road ahead was still uncertain, but he was ready to embrace whatever challenges came his way. While Madison's absence still weighed heavily on his heart, Jake held on to the belief that their paths might cross again one day. He hoped that when they did, he would be able to show her how far he had come and how her influence had shaped him into the person he was today. But for now, he would continue to pour his heart into his work, creating dishes that spoke to the complexity of the human experience. As Jake walked home through the bustling streets of New York, he felt a sense of gratitude for the journey he had been on. It had been a road filled with trials and heartache, but it had also been one of discovery and growth. He had learned that true passion came not just from achieving success, but from the ability to rise above adversity and create something meaningful. And so, Jake continued to forge his path, driven by the knowledge that every dish he created was a testament to his journey. It was a journey marked by love and loss, but also by resilience and hope. As he prepared for the next chapter in his life, Jake knew that whatever lay ahead, he was ready to face it with an open heart and a renewed sense of purpose. Enjoying the video? Subscribe to our channel to receive more interesting content. Click the subscribe button and stay updated with the latest news. Months had passed since Jake had last seen Madison. Essence was thriving, and he had settled into a rhythm that balanced the demands of running a successful restaurant with his newfound passion for storytelling through food. Yet, despite his professional success, a part of him remained tethered to the past, to the memories of the love he had shared with Madison. One busy Friday evening, as Essence hummed with the chatter of diners and the clinking of silverware, Jake moved through the kitchen with his usual grace and precision. Each dish was a masterpiece, crafted with the same care and emotion that had made Essence renowned in the city's culinary scene. As the dinner rush reached its peak, the restaurant manager approached Jake with a peculiar expression. "Jake, you might want to know who just walked in," she said, her voice a mix of excitement and concern. Jake wiped his hands on his apron, curiosity piqued. "Who is it?" "It's Madison, and she's not alone. She's here with Chris," the manager replied, her eyes flicking toward the dining area. Jake's heart skipped a beat. The thought of Madison being in the same room again, after all these months, sent a jolt of nervous energy through him. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. Madison and Chris were seated at a corner table, deep in conversation. Madison looked radiant, her smile as warm as he remembered. Chris sat across from her, laughing at something she had said. For a moment, Jake felt like an outsider peering into a world that was no longer his. But this was his restaurant, his domain, and he was determined not to let the unexpected encounter unsettle him. Instead, he decided to turn this moment into an opportunity to show Madison the depths of his growth and the passion he had poured into Essence. Jake instructed the kitchen staff to prepare a special tasting menu for Madison and Chris, one that would take them on a culinary journey through the highs and lows of his own experiences. Each dish was carefully selected, a reflection of his evolution as a chef and a person. As the courses were served, Jake watched from a distance, curious to see their reactions. The first course was a delicate amuse-bouche, a small but flavorful bite meant to whet the appetite. It was an expression of new beginnings, of hope and possibility. Madison's eyes widened in delight as she savored the flavors, while Chris nodded in appreciation. The second course, a roasted beet salad with goat cheese and walnuts, represented the sweetness of love and the earthiness of reality. It was a dish they had enjoyed together during the early days of their relationship, a nod to the memories they had shared. Madison glanced around the restaurant, perhaps sensing Jake's presence, as if she knew the dish had been crafted with her in mind. The third course, a seared salmon with a miso glaze, symbolized the balance and harmony Jake sought in his life. It was a dish that spoke of resilience, of the ability to adapt and thrive despite challenges. Chris leaned back in his chair, clearly impressed by the skill and creativity on display. As the evening unfolded, Each course told a story, weaving a tapestry of flavors that evoked emotions and memories. Jake couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in his work, knowing that he had transformed his pain into something beautiful and profound. When the dessert course arrived, a rich chocolate torte with a raspberry coulis, it was a final nod to the bittersweet nature of their past. It was a dish that spoke of indulgence and longing, a reminder of the complexities of love and loss. Madison took a bite, her expression softening as she closed her eyes to savor the rich flavors. As the meal came to an end, Jake felt a surge of adrenaline. He knew he couldn't let Madison leave without acknowledging her presence. He removed his apron and made his way to their table, his heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. "Good evening," Jake said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions within him. Madison looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. "Jake," she said softly, a myriad of emotions playing across her face. Chris, sensing the significance of the moment, offered a polite nod and excused himself to give them space. "It's been a while," Jake continued, pulling up a chair. "I hope you enjoyed the meal." Madison nodded, her gaze locked on his. "It was incredible, Jake. Every dish was a journey. You've truly outdone yourself." Jake smiled, grateful for her words. "Thank you. I wanted to create something that reflected everything I've been through, everything we've been through." There was a pause, a moment of silence that spoke volumes as they both processed the significance of the encounter. "I've missed this," Madison admitted, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "The passion, the creativity. It's like you've poured your soul into every bite." Jake felt a warmth spread through him, a sense of validation that had eluded him for so long. "I've missed it too. I've missed sharing it with you." The weight of their shared history hung in the air, a reminder of the journey they had taken together and apart. Jake took a deep breath, searching for the right words to express what he felt. "Madison, I've learned a lot since we parted ways. About myself, about what it means to truly pursue your passion. And I owe so much of that growth to you." Madison reached across the table, her fingers grazing his. "I've grown too, Jake. I've had time to reflect, to figure out what I want in life. And I realize now that what we had was special, something worth cherishing." Their conversation flowed, a tapestry of emotions and memories, as they reconnected over the remnants of their meal. It was a bittersweet reunion, one filled with the hope of new beginnings and the acknowledgement of past mistakes. As the evening drew to a close, Jake felt a sense of closure he hadn't anticipated. Seeing Madison again, sharing this moment with her, had been cathartic in ways he hadn't expected. He realized that while their paths had diverged, they had both found the strength to forge ahead, to pursue their dreams with passion and determination. As they stood to leave, Madison turned to Jake, her expression sincere. "Thank you, Jake, for everything. I'll always treasure the memories we made together." Jake nodded, a soft smile on his lips. "And I'll always cherish the impact you've had on my life. Take care, Madison." They parted ways with a sense of peace, knowing that their story, while no longer intertwined, would always hold a special place in their hearts. For Jake, the encounter had been a reminder of how far he had come, of the resilience and growth that had shaped his journey. As he watched Madison walk away, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, to continue creating and sharing his passion with the world. And as he returned to the warmth of the kitchen, he knew that his story was far from over, that there were new chapters waiting to be written, filled with love, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of dreams. The night after Madison's visit to Essence lingered in Jake's mind. The unexpected reunion had stirred up emotions he thought he had buried, but it also reinforced his commitment to his craft. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, driven by the knowledge that he could touch people's lives through his cooking, just as he had touched Madison's. With this renewed energy, Jake set out to refine Essence's menu even further. He wanted every dish to be an experience, a reflection of the stories and emotions that shaped them. To achieve this, he invited a select group of diners to a special tasting event at the restaurant, hoping to gauge their reactions and refine his approach. As the evening of the event arrived, Jake was filled with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The room buzzed with anticipation as the guests, a mix of food critics, local chefs, and loyal patrons, took their seats. Jake introduced the evening with a brief speech, explaining the intention behind the meal they were about to experience. "Tonight is about storytelling through flavor," he began, his voice carrying a quiet confidence. "Each dish represents a chapter in the journey we all share. Moments of joy, sorrow, triumph, and transformation. I hope that through these flavors, you'll feel connected not only to the food but to the experiences that inspire it." The first course was served, a delicate butternut squash soup infused with ginger and topped with a dollop of creme fraiche. It was a comforting dish, meant to evoke the warmth and familiarity of home, and the diners responded with contented smiles and murmurs of approval. Jake watched from the kitchen, gauging their reactions. He could see how each bite brought a different memory or emotion to the surface, and he felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that his vision was coming to life. The second course, a vibrant salad of heirloom tomatoes with basil and burrata, was a celebration of summer, a nod to the fleeting beauty of moments that come and go too quickly. As the meal progressed, Jake found himself swept up in the energy of the evening. Each course was a new chapter, carefully crafted to evoke a specific emotion. The roasted duck with cherry sauce was a nod to resilience, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there is beauty to be found. The diners were entranced, their senses engaged as they experienced the layers of flavor and meaning behind each dish. Midway through the meal, Jake emerged from the kitchen to mingle with the guests, eager to hear their thoughts and impressions. As he moved from table to table, he was struck by the depth of their responses. "It's like you're telling a story without words," one guest remarked, her eyes alight with appreciation. "Each dish brings back a memory or a feeling. It's truly remarkable." Another diner, a renowned food critic, offered praise that Jake had never expected to hear. "You've created something truly unique here, Jake," he said, his tone serious yet warm. "This isn't just a meal. It's an experience that resonates on a deeper level. You've elevated the art of cooking to something extraordinary." The praise was humbling, but more than that, it validated Jake's belief in the power of food to connect and transform. He felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey he had undertaken, for the heartache and challenges that had shaped him into the chef he was today. As the meal drew to a close, Jake returned to the kitchen to prepare the final course, a dessert that encapsulated the essence of hope and renewal. It was a lemon tart, its bright and tangy flavors tempered by a sweet meringue, symbolizing the light that follows darkness. The diners savored each bite, their expressions reflecting the joy and satisfaction that came from a truly memorable dining experience. With the event coming to a close, Jake stood at the front of the room to thank his guests. "Tonight was not just about food," he said, his voice steady and heartfelt. "It was about sharing the experiences that shape us, the moments that define who we are. I hope that you leave here not just full, but inspired, knowing that your own stories are just as meaningful and worth sharing." The applause that followed was overwhelming, a testament to the impact of Jake's vision. As the guests began to depart, many stopped to offer their thanks and congratulations, expressing their admiration for the artistry and emotion behind the meal. As the last of the diners left and the restaurant quieted, Jake took a moment to reflect on the evening's success. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that he had touched lives through his work. The experience had been a reminder of why he had pursued this path in the first place: to create, to connect, and to inspire. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but Jake knew that he was ready to face whatever challenges came his way. He was confident in his ability to tell stories through food, to use his craft as a means of expression and connection. And though the future was unknown, he embraced it with an open heart and a willingness to grow. As he cleaned up the kitchen and prepared to close the restaurant for the night, Jake felt a sense of peace and purpose. He knew that his story was far from over, that there were new chapters waiting to be written. And as he looked out over the empty dining room, he felt a quiet certainty that whatever came next, he was ready to embrace it with courage and determination. In that moment, Jake understood that his journey had been about more than just food. It had been about finding himself, about discovering the strength and resilience that lay within. And as he locked up and stepped into the night, He knew that he would continue to create and share his passion with the world, one dish at a time. As the success of Essence continued to grow, Jake found himself reflecting more and more on the choices that had brought him to this point. Each night, after the restaurant closed, he would sit in the quiet dining room, contemplating the journey that had shaped both his life and his work. He knew that every decision, every moment of doubt and triumph, had led him here. The restaurant had become a mirror of his experiences, reflecting not only his growth as a chef, but also the emotional journey he had been on since Madison left. It was a space where he could explore the complexities of love, loss, and redemption, using food as a means to convey the depths of his feelings. But despite his success, there was still a part of him that longed for closure, for a chance to confront the past and truly move forward. That opportunity arrived one evening in the form of an unexpected visitor. Jake was in the kitchen, finishing the final touches on the evening's menu, when he heard a familiar voice asking for him. He stepped out into the dining room, his heart skipping a beat as he saw Madison standing by the entrance. She looked different, yet still the same warmth in her eyes, the same gentle smile that had first drawn him in. Jake felt a mix of emotions as he approached her, memories flooding back with each step. "Madison," he said, his voice a blend of surprise and curiosity. "What brings you here?" Madison smiled, a hint of nervousness in her expression. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything that happened," she began, her tone earnest. "And I realized that there are things I need to say, things I need to understand." Jake nodded, gesturing toward an empty table. "Let's sit," he offered, sensing the weight of the conversation that lay ahead. As they settled into their seats, the familiar hum of the restaurant around them, Jake felt a sense of déjà vu. This was the same space where they had once dreamed of a future together, and now it was the backdrop for a conversation that could redefine their relationship. Madison took a deep breath, her eyes meeting Jake's with a sincerity that was hard to ignore. "I've missed this place," she admitted, glancing around at the warm, inviting space they had created. "It feels like home, and I've missed that feeling." Jake listened, his heart aching with a mix of longing and resolve. "I've missed it too," he confessed, his voice steady. "And I've missed you. But I also know that we both needed space to grow, to find out who we are outside of this place and each other." Madison nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "You're right. I've spent a lot of time thinking about my choices, about how I let things get so complicated between us. I was scared, Jake. Scared of losing myself, of losing what we had built together. But in trying to protect myself, I ended up pushing you away." Jake leaned back in his chair, the honesty of her words resonating deeply. "We both made mistakes, Madison. I was so focused on making Essence a success that I forgot what really mattered. I took you for granted, and for that, I'm truly sorry." Their conversation was a cathartic release, an opportunity to lay bare the emotions and regrets that had haunted them both. It was a chance to confront the past and acknowledge the pain they had caused each other. As they talked, Jake felt a sense of clarity washing over him, a realization that this moment was about more than seeking forgiveness. It was about understanding and growth. Madison reached across the table, her hand finding his. "I want you to know that I'm proud of you, Jake. You've created something truly beautiful here, something that touches people in ways they might not even realize. You found a way to turn your pain into art, and that's something special." Jake squeezed her hand, gratitude swelling in his chest. "Thank you, Madison. Hearing that means more than you know. And I want you to know that I've always valued your presence in my life, even when things were tough. You've been a part of this journey in ways that go beyond the restaurant." As their conversation continued, they began to explore the possibility of a new chapter, one defined not by the past, but by the potential for renewal. They talked about their aspirations, their hopes for the future, and the lessons they had learned along the way. It was a conversation filled with vulnerability and honesty, a chance to rebuild the trust that had once been broken. In the course of their discussion, Jake realized that while the past could not be changed, it had shaped them into the people they were today. He understood that forgiveness was not about erasing the mistakes, but about accepting them and moving forward with compassion and understanding. As the evening drew to a close, Madison looked at Jake with a mixture of hope and determination. I don't know what the future holds for us, Jake, but I know that I want to be a part of it. Whether as friends, partners, or something more, I want us to be in each other's lives." Jake smiled, a sense of peace settling over him. "I want that too, Madison. Whatever form it takes, I'm ready to embrace it." Their conversation had been a turning point, a chance to redefine their relationship and find closure in the process. It was a reminder that love, in all its forms, was a journey, a tapestry of choices and experiences that ultimately defined who they were. As they stood to leave, Jake felt a renewed sense of hope. The restaurant, once a symbol of their shared dream, had become a testament to their resilience and growth. And as he watched Madison walk out into the night, he knew that their story was far from over. It was a journey that would continue to evolve, shaped by the choices they made and the paths they chose to follow. For Jake, the evening had been a revelation, a chance to see himself and his journey in a new light. He felt a profound sense of gratitude for the experiences that had brought him to this point, for the challenges and triumphs that had defined his path. And as he returned to the kitchen, ready to create once more, he knew that the future held endless possibilities, each one a reflection of the growth and transformation he had embraced. The days following Madison's visit were filled with a newfound sense of clarity for Jake. Their conversation had been a turning point, allowing him to confront the past and embrace the possibility of a new future. However, as the weight of their history began to settle, Jake realized that he still had one more hurdle to overcome, a confrontation he had been avoiding for too long. Chris, the friend who had unwittingly come between him and Madison, was still a lingering presence in Jake's thoughts. Although Jake had made peace with Madison, the tension with Chris remained unresolved. Jake knew that to truly move forward, he needed to confront Chris and address the issues that had contributed to the fracture in his relationship with Madison. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon when Jake decided to reach out to Chris. He sent a simple text, "Hey Chris, do you have time to meet up? There's something I'd like to talk about." The response came quickly, "Sure, Jake. Let's meet at the cafe around the corner." As Jake made his way to the cafe, he felt a mix of apprehension and determination. He knew that this conversation would be difficult, but it was necessary. He couldn't allow unresolved feelings to linger any longer. When he arrived, Chris was already seated, nursing a cup of coffee and looking contemplative. "Hey, Jake," Chris greeted him, his tone neutral but curious. "What's up?" Jake sat down, taking a moment to collect his thoughts before speaking. "Thanks for meeting me, Chris. I wanted to talk about everything that happened between us, with Madison, and how it affected all of us." Chris nodded, setting his coffee down. "Yeah, I've been thinking about that too. I'm glad you reached out." Taking a deep breath, Jake launched into the conversation. "I want to be honest, Chris. When you came back into Madison's life, it stirred up a lot of emotions and uncertainty for me. I felt threatened, like I was losing her to someone who understood her in ways I couldn't." Chris listened intently, his expression thoughtful. "I never intended to come between you two, Jake. Madison and I have a long history, but I never wanted to disrupt what you had. I guess I underestimated how my presence would affect things." The two sat in silence for a moment, both reflecting on their roles in the events that had unfolded. Jake appreciated Chris's honesty, and he knew that to truly mend the rift, he needed to offer his own. "I realize now that I let my insecurities get the best of me," Jake admitted, his voice steady. "I didn't handle the situation well, and instead of talking to Madison about how I felt, I pushed her away. I was so focused on protecting what we had that I didn't see how I was contributing to the problem." Chris nodded, acknowledging Jake's perspective. "It's easy to get caught up in our own fears, especially when it comes to people we care about. I should have been more aware of how my actions were impacting you and Madison." The conversation was raw and honest, a necessary unpacking of emotions that had been left to fester for too long. Jake felt a sense of relief as they continued to talk, each taking responsibility for their part in the situation. "I'm sorry, Jake," Chris said, sincerity in his voice. "I never wanted to cause a rift between you two. I've always respected what you had with Madison, and I should have been more mindful of how I fit into that picture." Jake appreciated Chris's apology, feeling the tension between them begin to ease. "Thank you, Chris. I accept your apology, and I'm sorry too for the way I handled things." We were all navigating difficult emotions, and it's easy to lose sight of what really matters. As the conversation continued, Jake felt the weight of the past slowly lift. The confrontation he had dreaded turned out to be a healing experience, a chance to rebuild a bridge that had been broken. Jake realized that forgiveness was not just about letting go of anger, but about understanding the complexities of human relationships. With the air cleared, Jake and Chris found themselves discussing not only the past, but also the future. They talked about the possibilities of rebuilding their friendship, of supporting each other as they moved forward in their lives. Jake was surprised by how much he valued this opportunity to reconnect with Chris, to find common ground and shared understanding. "You know," Chris said with a slight smile, "maybe this whole thing was a blessing in disguise. It forced us to confront things we've been ignoring and made us stronger for it." Jake nodded, recognizing the truth in Chris's words. "Yeah, it's strange how life works sometimes. I guess it takes challenges to show us what we're capable of and what really matters." The cafe bustled around them, but Jake felt a sense of peace and closure as they continued to talk. It was a testament to the power of open communication and the willingness to confront difficult truths. Jake knew that while the road to healing was ongoing, he was taking the right steps toward a brighter future. As they finished their conversation, Jake felt grateful for the opportunity to mend the bridges that had been damaged. He realized that while the journey had been painful, it had also been transformative, allowing him to grow as a person and a chef. Leaving the cafe, Jake felt lighter, the weight of unresolved issues no longer bearing down on him. He knew that the past would always be a part of him, but it didn't have to define him. Instead, it could serve as a foundation for growth and understanding, a reminder of the resilience and strength he had found within himself. With a renewed sense of purpose, Jake returned to Essence, ready to continue sharing his passion and creativity with the world. He knew that the story of his journey was still unfolding, filled with new challenges and opportunities. But whatever lay ahead, he was ready to face it with an open heart and a clear mind, confident in his ability to navigate the complexities of life and love. And as he stepped back into the kitchen, Jake felt a quiet assurance that he was exactly where he was meant to be, surrounded by the flavors and stories that had become his life's work. He understood now that every dish he created was a testament to his journey, a reflection of the choices and experiences that had shaped him into the person he was today. The air in Essence felt different now, lighter, more charged with possibility. Jake had cleared the lingering shadows of the past and was ready to embrace the next chapter of his life with renewed clarity and determination. He had spent months pouring his emotions into every dish, turning pain into art and uncertainty into inspiration. Now, with his relationships mended and his heart lighter, he felt free to explore new horizons. The restaurant had always been Jake's sanctuary, a place where he could express himself and connect with others through his craft. But now, it was more than just a space for healing. It was a canvas for innovation and creativity. Jake wanted to push the boundaries of his culinary skills to create dishes that were not only delicious but transformative. In the weeks that followed his conversation with Chris, Jake dove headfirst into a whirlwind of creative exploration. He began experimenting with new ingredients, techniques, and flavors, challenging himself to think outside the box. He drew inspiration from every corner of his life: travel experiences, childhood memories, and the stories of the people who walked through the doors of Essence. One evening, as Jake stood in the kitchen, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. The kitchen buzzed with activity, the staff working seamlessly to create a dining experience that resonated with every guest. Jake felt a sense of pride and accomplishment, knowing that the restaurant had become a haven for both his staff and his patrons. Jake's sous chef, Emma, approached him with a question about the evening's special. "Hey, Jake, do you want to go with the seared tuna for the special, or should we try something new?" she asked, a hint of excitement in her voice. Jake considered the options, his mind racing with possibilities. "Let's try something new," he replied, a smile spreading across his face. "How about a tuna tartare with avocado and wasabi? Something fresh and bold." Emma nodded, her enthusiasm infectious. "Sounds perfect. Let's make it unforgettable." As the kitchen hummed with energy, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that the journey he had been on wasn't just about healing from the past, but about forging a new path forward. He was ready to embrace change, to take risks and create something truly unique. One of the changes Jake wanted to implement was a series of themed dining events at Essence, each one telling a different story through food. The first event, A Journey Through the Seasons, would explore the flavors and traditions of each season, capturing the essence of nature's cycles. As he planned the event, Jake felt a surge of excitement. He envisioned a menu that celebrated the bounty of spring, the warmth of summer, the richness of autumn, and the comfort of winter. Each course would be a celebration of the season, a tribute to the ever-changing world around them. When the night of the event arrived, Essence was transformed into a magical setting, with each table adorned with seasonal decorations. The guests arrived, eager to embark on a culinary journey that promised to be as enlightening as it was delicious. Jake greeted the diners with a warm smile, welcoming them to an evening of discovery and delight. "Thank you all for joining us tonight," he began, his voice filled with genuine warmth. "Tonight's menu is a celebration of the seasons, a journey through the flavors and traditions that define each time of year. I hope you enjoy the experience as much as we enjoyed creating it." The first course, a vibrant spring salad with edible flowers and a light vinaigrette, set the tone for the evening. The diners were enchanted by the colors and textures, the flavors a perfect reflection of the season's renewal and growth. As the courses progressed, Jake watched with satisfaction as the guests experienced the artistry and emotion behind each dish. The summer course featured grilled corn with cilantro and lime, a tribute to the season's abundance and warmth. The autumn course, a roasted pumpkin soup with sage and nutmeg, evoked the cozy, comforting essence of fall. With each dish, Jake felt a deeper connection to his craft, to the stories and experiences that inspired him. The final course, a winter dessert of spiced apple tart with caramel sauce, was a testament to the resilience and hope that had carried him through the darkest times. As the evening drew to a close, Jake felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought him here. The event had been a success, a testament to the power of food to connect and transform. He realized that his story was not just about overcoming adversity, but about embracing the beauty and possibility of the present moment. In the days that followed, Jake continued to explore new ideas and concepts, eager to keep pushing the boundaries of what was possible at Essence. He knew that the journey of growth and discovery was ongoing, and he was excited to see where it would lead. He also found himself thinking more about his relationship with Madison. Their conversation had opened the door to a new beginning, and Jake wondered what form that might take. He felt a sense of peace knowing that whatever happened, they would always share a bond that transcended time and circumstance. As he stood in the kitchen, preparing for another busy night at Essence, Jake reflected on the path he had traveled. He had faced challenges and heartache, but he had emerged stronger, wiser, and more inspired than ever. He understood that life was a journey, a series of choices and experiences that shaped who they were and who they would become. And as he looked out at the bustling dining room, filled with laughter and conversation, Jake felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be, doing what he loved and sharing his passion with the world. In that moment, Jake embraced the future with open arms, ready to continue his journey of discovery and creation. He understood that the story of Essence was far from over, that there were new chapters waiting to be written, filled with love, ambition, and the joy of sharing his art with others. As the night unfolded, Jake felt a quiet assurance that he was on the right path, surrounded by the people and experiences that made his life rich and meaningful. And with each dish he crafted, he knew that he was creating something truly special, an expression of his journey, a reflection of his soul, and a celebration of the beautiful, complex tapestry of life. We hope you were moved and inspired by our story. We want to hear your opinion. Leave a comment below, share your impressions, and your own stories of resilience and hope. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next emotional videos. Join us on this journey and follow more incredible stories. See you next time.